Juneteenth Cincinnati, in collaboration with the Kennedy Heights Arts Center, presents a celebration of the Harlem Renaissance. I remember Harlem. Do you? The Harlem Renaissance encompassed poetry, prose, painting, and sculpture, jazz and swing, opera, and dance. What united these diverse art forms was their realistic presentation of what it means to be Black in America. What Langston Hughes called an expression of our individual Black selves, as well as a new militancy in asserting our civil and political rights. The name alone does not describe the vast influence that this movement had on not only America, but the world. While the Renaissance was not confined to the Harlem district of New York City, Harlem attracted a remarkable concentration of intellect and talent and served as the symbolic capital of this cultural awakening. Cities like Detroit and Chicago, LA and Philadelphia were also greatly influenced by this great migration, or exodus, so to speak. This exodus of Black artists and intellectuals making their journey from the rural South to the industrialized cities of the North in an effort to express themselves through representing what it means to be and live Black in this oppressive land. But at the height of the movement, Harlem was the epicenter of American culture. The neighborhood bustled with African-American owned and run publishing houses and newspapers, music companies, playhouses, nightclubs, and cabarets. The literature, music, and fashion they created defined culture and cool for Blacks and white alike, in America and around the world. Among the Harlem Renaissance's most significant contributors were intellectuals W.E.B. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey, Cyril Briggs, and Walter Francis White, electrifying performers like Josephine Baker and Paul Robeson, writers and poets Zora Neale Hurston, Effie Lee Newsom, Countee Cullen, visual artists Aaron Douglas and Augusta Savage, and an extraordinary list of legendary musicians, including Louis Armstrong, Count Basie, Eubie Blake, Cab Calloway, Duke Ellington, Billie Holiday, Ivy Anderson, Josephine Baker, Fats Waller, Jelly Roll Morton, James Rosamond Johnson, and countless others. Embracing literary, musical, theatrical, and visual arts, participants sought to reconceptualize the Negro apart from the white stereotypes that had influenced Black people's relationship to their heritage and to each other. They also sought to break free of Victorian moral values and bourgeoisie shame about aspects of their lives that might, as seen by whites, reinforce racist beliefs. Never dominated by a particular school of thought, but rather characterized by intense debate, the movement laid the groundwork for all later African-American literature and had an enormous impact on subsequent Black literature and consciousness worldwide. While the Renaissance was not confined to the Harlem district of New York City, Harlem attracted a remarkable concentration of intellect and talent and served as the symbolic capital of this cultural awakening. Culminating this virtual performance series, the Cincinnati Public School Jazz Orchestra and the Middle School Jazz Orchestra, directed by Dr. Isidore Rudnick, present a musical tribute to the great Harlem Renaissance musicians Duke Ellington, Fats Waller, and Billie Holiday.
Welcome to the Cincinnati Public Schools Music of the Harlem Renaissance Concert. My name is Dr. Izzy Rudnick, and I'm the Fine Arts Curriculum Manager and Director of the CPS Jazz Academy. and it is my pleasure to introduce all of you to the two student groups that will be performing this evening. We have the CPS Elementary Jazz Orchestra first. These students are in grades 4th through 6th, and we rehearse 1 day a week after school at the Kennedy Heights Arts Center. Tonight we will be presenting music of the Harlem Renaissance, specifically jazz. Over the course of the concert, we will perform the music of 4 of the most celebrated jazz artists of the 20th century: Duke Ellington, Thomas Fats Waller, Billie Holiday, and Lester Young. All 4 of these amazing musicians contributed to the artistic history of the Harlem Renaissance in the 1920s and 30s. It is, of course, important to note that these are just a very few of the important musicians of the Harlem Renaissance. We have selected these four musicians in part because not only are they historically incredibly important, but their music is exciting and very adaptable to young groups like ours. The Harlem Renaissance was a golden age in African American culture and lasted from the 1910s through the mid-1930s. This period has produced some of the most influential and important musicians, dancers, actors, visual artists, authors, poets, activists, playwrights, anthropologists, and intellectuals of the 20th century. Where did this all take place? Well, it took place in Upper Manhattan in New York City, an area approximately from 96th Street north all the way to 155th Street. Both black and white audiences in the 20s and the 30s flocked to Harlem to experience this great art and culture of Black America. So to start our program this evening, we will focus on the great Duke Ellington. As much as any other musical artist of the Harlem Renaissance, his jazz performances with his orchestra influenced the direction of jazz and enchanted audiences with the unique sounds of the orchestra and the unique textures that he was able to coax out of all the musicians. So right now we would like to perform for you one of his very popular compositions entitled Sea Jam Blues, and this will feature a lot of our young musicians taking solos. Rhythm up on top. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So that was Duke Ellington's C Jam Blues. And we'd like to talk for a second about this amazing musical figure, Duke Ellington. He was not just an extremely important figure in jazz, he is regarded as one of the most influential artists of the 20th century. What makes this great band leader, composer, arranger, pianist, musical ambassador unique? Well, firstly, he was incredibly prolific. He wrote over 2,000 compositions, and he composed everywhere. He composed on buses and trains and planes. His output will never be equaled by another jazz musician. He established a unique jazz orchestra based on the unique talents and skills of his musicians. Some of the most unique and creative jazz soloists were in his band. People like Jimmy Blanton, Ben Webster, Johnny Hodges, Lawrence Brown, Tricky Sam Nanton, Bubber Miley, musicians with a very unique sound and a very unique skill set. And he was able to make the most of that. He also authentically documented the Black experience in America through his compositions, such as Black and Tan Fantasy, Black, Brown, and Beige, Harlem Air Shaft, East St. Louis Toodaloo, and many others. He became America's second cultural ambassador after Louis Armstrong. He was able to reach audiences throughout the world of every background and ethnicity. And it is a pleasure now to do a second composition with our wonderful CPS Elementary Jazz Orchestra. And this is a composition that he wrote entitled Just Squeeze Me. Rhythm on top. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're ready for the second part of our concert, and this is going to feature the CPS Middle School Jazz Orchestra, and these students are in 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We have a real special treat for you this evening. We have one of the finest jazz soloists in the Midwest with us. He's going to perform with us, and he's going to talk a little bit about these great artists of the Harlem Renaissance. So it's my pleasure right now to introduce the amazing jazz saxophonist, Ron Jones.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, and welcome to this concert. I want to give you a little bit of information about the first piece we're going to play today. And I want to talk about the composer, Fats Waller. Thomas Wright Waller, better known as Fats Waller, was born on May 21st, 1904. He was an American jazz pianist, organist, composer, violinist, singer, and comedic entertainer. His innovations in the Harlem stride style laid the groundwork for modern jazz piano. Waller was a prolific songwriter and copyrighted over 400 songs. Two of his best-known compositions, Ain't Misbehavin' and Honeysuckle Rose, were inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 1984 and 1999. Honeysuckle Rose, the piece we're performing for you tonight, was composed in 1929 and was introduced as a soft shoe dance number in the off-Broadway revue Load of Coal. He was the 7th of 11 children. His mother, Adeline, was a musician. His father, Edward, was a trucker and a pastor. Waller started playing the piano when he was 6 years old, and by age 10, he was playing the organ in his father's church. His mother instructed him as a youth, but he also studied music with other teachers and became a prize student of the great pianist James P. Johnson. He attended DeWitt Clinton High School for one semester, but left at 15 years old to work as an organist in the Lincoln Theater of Harlem, where he earned a whopping $32 a week. A lot of money back then. Within 12 months, he had composed his first rag. By the age of 18, he was a recording artist. His first recordings, Muscle Shoals Blues and Birmingham Blues, were made in October 1922 for O'Key Records. That year, he also made his first player piano roll called Got to Cool My Doggies Now. His first published composition, Squeeze Me, was published in 1924 and was based on an old blues song called The Boy in the Boat. Fats Waller became one of the most popular performers of his era and achieved critical and commercial success in the United States and in Europe. Not only was he a great musician, but he also appeared in several films, including Stormy Weather in 1943. Fats Waller also wrote music and performed in several successful Broadway musicals, including 1928's Keep Shufflin', 1929's Hot Chocolates, and 1943's Early to Bed. Fats Waller died on December 15th, 1943 from pneumonia at the young age of 39. Hope you enjoy the piece we're going to play for you, Honeysuckle Rose.
One, two, rhythm starts. 1, 2.
Our next artist that we're going to feature is Lester Young. And I want to tell you a little bit about Lester Young, the great tenor saxophonist. Lester Willis Young, nicknamed Prez, was born in Woodfield, Mississippi on August 27, 1909. He was an American jazz tenor saxophonist and was another important component in the evolution of jazz saxophone. Young grew up in a musical family. His parents, Willis and Lizetta Young, as well as all the siblings, played music. They even had a family band that toured carnivals and played in regional cities in the Southwest until Young left them in 1927 to pursue his playing career. Between 1927 and 1932, Young played with a variety of bands, but he came to prominence when he joined the Count Basie Orchestra in 1933. Young was one of the most influential players on his instrument. He played with a big, dark tone, used sophisticated harmonies, and had a quick vibrato. The swing and rhythmic feel in his improvisations were far more relaxed and graceful than that of his contemporaries. His ideas were streamlined, logical, and refreshingly melodic. The impact of his style was so broad that he has been cited as a favorite by the great saxophonist Charlie Parker, Stan Getz, and John Coltrane. Much of the West Coast cool style was a direct product of Lester Young's approach, with many saxophonists playing his solos note for note in their own performances. In 1934, Young met the great jazz singer Billie Holiday, and the connection was immediate as they became best of friends and inseparable. Young had an amazing intuitive rapport with Holiday when they performed together, and when you listen to their recordings, it's very clear they inspired each other musically. Holiday crowned Young as the president of the tenor saxophone, and he was known thereafter as Prez. Young was also the originator of a cool style of dress, lingo, and even holding the saxophone. He popularized the term cool to mean something fashionable or good. He wore his trademark pork pie hat and double-breasted pinstripe suits, and rather than holding the saxophone vertically, he held it high and to the right at a 45-degree angle. When Lester Young died on March 15, 1959, bass player Charles Mingus wrote an elegy for Young called Goodbye Pork Pie Hat. Tonight, the ensemble is playing one of Lester Young's most recognizable pieces, Lester Leaps In. It's a jazz standard originally recorded in 1939 by Count Basie's Kansas City 7. The melody is based on the chord progression of I Got Rhythm, written by the great George Gershwin. We hope you enjoy it. Lester Leaps In.
Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
The next artist that I like to speak on is Billie Holiday. But before I do say anything else, I want to, out there in TV land, video land, I want you to give a big hand for this ensemble. I can hear you clapping already. Great job. Sounds good. Eleanor Fagan, better known as Billie Holiday, was born on April 7, 1915, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She was an American jazz singer with a career that spanned 26 years. Holiday had an innovative influence on jazz music and pop singing. Her style was strongly influenced by jazz instrumentalists, as she pioneered a new way of manipulating phrasing and tempo. Her uncanny syncopation and dramatic intensity made her the outstanding jazz singer of her day. Her trademark was a white gardenia that she wore in her hair. As a youngster, Holiday had a very turbulent childhood as she experienced juvenile court, reform school, rape, prostitution, and even prison. In her difficult early life, Holiday found solace in music, singing along with records by Bessie Smith and Louis Armstrong. In 1929, Holiday moved to New York City to be with her mother, Sarah Fagan, and by 1930, she was singing in the local clubs in Harlem. It was at this point she changed her name. She took a professional stage name from Billie Dove, an actress that she really liked, and her probable father, Clarence Halliday, spelled H-A-L-L-I-D-A-Y. She later changed it to Holiday, H-O-L-I-D-A-Y. Holiday was discovered by producer Jim Hammond. With Hammond, she cut her first record as part of a studio group led by clarinetist Benny Goodman. From 1935 to 1941, Holiday's career soared, recording hit after hit with pianist-arranger Teddy Wilson. She also began a legendary friendship and string of collaborations with tenor sax giant Lester Young, whose complimentary tone was a perfect fit for her voice. Young loved her singing so much that he gave her the nickname Lady Day, which stuck with her her entire career. By the time Holiday joined Kansas City's phenomenal Count Basie Orchestra for tours in 1937, she was an unstoppable force and got top billing across the United States. By the late 1940s, Holiday was beset by legal troubles and drug abuse. After a short prison sentence, she performed at a sold-out Carnegie Hall, but her reputation had deteriorated because of her drug and alcohol problems. In 1956, the autobiography Lady Sings the Blues was written by Holiday and co-authored by William Duffty. The book formed the basis of the 1972 film Lady Sings the Blues, starring the great Diana Ross. And if you haven't seen this movie, you should get it. It is phenomenal. Holiday's final album, Lady in Satin, was released in 1958. Billie Holiday died on July 17, 1959, at the age of 44. The piece we're playing for you tonight, Lover Man, was written in 1941 by Jimmy Davis, Roger Ramirez, and James Sherman. It is particularly associated with Holiday, for whom it was written, and her version was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 1989. Hope you enjoy this version of Lover Man.
One, two, 3, 4, 5, 6.
For those of you who are not here live, this band is cooking. This band is cooking. Great job. The last jazz great that we want to speak on this evening is the great Duke Ellington. Oops, sorry. Edward Kennedy Duke Ellington was an American composer, pianist, and band leader of the Duke Ellington Jazz Orchestra. He became one of the most prolific composers and band leaders the world has ever known, and his music is still very relevant to this day. Ellington was born on April 29, 1899 in Washington, D.C. His parents, James and Daisy Ellington, were both pianists. At an early age, Ellington was very interested in sports, like baseball, but his interest in music grew when he started taking piano lessons at the age of 7 and was introduced to pianists like U.B. Blake, Fats Waller, and James P. Johnson. His nickname, Duke, came from his childhood friends, as they noticed his casual manner, sophistication, and his dapper dress gave him the look of a young nobleman. During his career, Ellington wrote more than 1,000 compositions. His extensive body of work is the largest recorded personal jazz legacy, and many of his pieces have become standards. Tonight, we are performing one of those pieces called Caravan, which was written in 1936. Ellington also composed music that dealt with the Black experience and struggle in America. Black and Tan Fantasy would become one of his most popular tunes and one that would be associated with him his entire career. Another popular piece was Harlem Renaissance, written in 1940. In 1939, Ellington started a 30-year collaboration with composer, arranger, and pianist Billy Strayhorn, whom he called his writing and arranging companion. With Strayhorn, he composed many extended compositions, suites, as well as short pieces. Ellington was known for his inventive use and how he arranged for the orchestra, and believed it was comprised of individuals. He believed in letting the dissonant voices of each musician play against each other and wrote music that capitalized on the particular style and skills of his soloist. It was for this and many other reasons that musicians like Johnny Hodges, Cootie Williams, Harry Carney, and many others stayed with Ellington for extended periods of time. For over 5 decades, the Duke Ellington Orchestra entertained audiences throughout the entire world with a sophisticated level of swing, blues, and gospel. He also educated audiences on a personal and a human level. Ellington collected many awards throughout his long career, including the posthumous Special Pulitzer Prize for his lifetime contributions to music and culture in 1999. Duke Ellington died on May 24th, 1974. We hope you enjoy this rendition of Caravan.
1920s came to a close, so did the Harlem Renaissance. Its heyday was cut short largely due to the stock market crash of 1929 and resulting Great Depression, which hurt African American-owned businesses and publications and made less financial support for the arts available from patrons, foundations, and theatrical organizations. However, the Harlem Renaissance's impact on America was indelible. The movement brought notice to the great works of African American art and inspired and influenced future generations of African American artists and intellectuals. The self-portrait of African American life, identity, and culture that emerged from Harlem was transmitted to the world at large, challenging the racist and disparaging stereotype of the Jim Crow South. In doing so, it radically redefined how people of other races viewed African Americans and understood the African American experience.